He did not choose his own sons. He chose someone in the kingdom who was qualified. He chose someone in the kingdom who was qualified, made him sit on the throne, and then gave up everything and went away to the forest to focus on his bhajan. So now what do we notice? Again, very, very clear decision making. It is only when you're unattached would you be able to take these kind of decisions. How will you be able to take these kind of decisions if happiness were to be a matter of pleasure from the body? How can you take the proper decision when we are fully dependent on the body for pleasure? How can we take proper decisions when we are fully dependent on subtle aspects of matter for pleasure? We cannot take proper decisions because the decision making will be thwarted. However, the identity of being Krishna's servant, when it becomes central to someone's existence, any decision becomes lucid, it becomes clear. Why? Because the super soul from within gives direction. One day Srila Prabhupada was walking with some of his servants. And as they were walking, they came across, in a garden, they came across a nest. And in that nest there was this little bird. It had just hatched, maybe a day or so. It had sprouted, wings, and it was, trying to make an attempt. And Prabhupada was just watching, and the bird was making an attempt to fly from the nest to the ground. Just a few flaps. And as it was just trying to fly from the nest to the ground, Prabhupada encouraged it, and the bird flew, and then it sat on the ground. And Prabhupada turned around and asked his disciples. He said, "How did this little bird learn to fly?" Some of the disciples said, "It's instinct. It's animal instinct just as much as a fish learns to swim, babies learn to walk. It's animal instinct." Prabhupada corrected them. No, it is not animal instinct. The super soul from within, the Paramatma, is instructing and giving intelligence for the bird to fly. So when we keep our identity solid, when we keep our identity completely focused on being Krishna's servant, and we become dependent on the mercy of the Lord provides intelligence. That intelligence allows us to take proper decisions, and life is about proper decisions. Life, if you notice, is about proper decisions. Who we are today is an aggregate of decisions that we made during our adulthood, our childhood, and so on. How well did we study? What kind of course did we take? Where did we go? There were quite a few decisions that we took, right? Some forced, some where we had a lot of levity in being able to take such decisions. We took decisions and we are here today. In a similar fashion, the intelligence is being provided by the super soul while and when we decide to focus on the service of the Lord. Right? So there's a dependence. Now, for the case of a pure devotee, it is very clear. The pure devotee receives direct instructions from Krishna. Direct instructions. It's not indirect. It's not perceived intelligence. It is a direct communication with Krishna, and they act upon it. I was just listening to Sachinandan Maharaj sharing his experiences with Srila Prabhupada in his younger days. Just when he had joined the temple, his family was a group of very orthodox Christians from Germany. And Sachinandan Maharaj, when he joined, many of his family members were against. His father, his grandfather, so on and so forth, they were all very against. His grandfather was very ill. And Sachinandan Maharaj was serving in the London temple, rather London Ishwara temple. His grandfather was very ill, and in his family there was a tradition that you meet your grandfather, whoever is ill, he was going to leave his body, and whatever he asks for, you do. So if you were to ask him to give up Krishna consciousness, family tradition would force him to give up Krishna consciousness. All kinds of conflicts in his mind. While he was serving as a brahmachari, he had all kinds of conflicts because there was a lot of pressure from his family to give up Krishna consciousness because it was an alien culture. They were born Christians, they were Westerners. Why take up Krishna consciousness? So while he was doing this, he was given the service of washing, cleansing the deity plates after the Bhoga offering every day. Every time the deity is offered Bhoga, it was his duty to empty the bowls and clean everything and make sure that it's ready for the next offering. So he was quite distracted while doing so because of all his tensions and his focus and the agitation that was going on, because his father was asking him to come back to Germany, his grandfather was ill, and so on and so forth. He was quite young. They were all 18, 20, 25, not very old. He was under a lot of pressure. While he was under a lot of pressure and he was engaging in this service, there were times when he couldn't concentrate on the service of even washing the plates. So one day while he was washing the plates, the temple president from the London temple, he walked over and asked Maharaj very gravely, he said, "Are you having problems in washing these plates?" And Maharaj did not acknowledge it at that time. Then the temple president told Maharaj, he said, "It seems Krishna told Prabhupada that his plates are not being washed before Bhoga is being offered for the next time. So Prabhupada specifically told me to tell whoever was washing the plates to do a good job." So Srila Prabhupada was in the altar. Radha Landanishwara complained that the Bhoga plates are not being washed properly. Tell that young man to wash them properly. So Prabhupada instructed that pay focus, be focused. So now the deity is communicating. Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra are here. They are in brass, but then for those who are advanced enough to connect with them, they can perceive their presence, they can communicate with them because they are on the transcendental plane. Right? Srila Prabhupada was always in the transcendental plane. He was able to communicate to the deities, and the deities complained the plates are not being washed properly before they offer Bhoga to us. Now we understand how serious a business it is to serve the Lord Himself, right? Because we don't perceive His presence, the duties become quite mundane, mediocre, right? Every day it's a chore. But for those who can understand them, there they are, Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Chandra, right there, engaging in different pastimes. So what are we trying to say here? We are trying to say that communication between the super soul and the protection of the super soul is always present. The more we surrender, the more we are guided. Right? It's like a child. When the child crosses the road, the child is completely dependent on the parents. How many of us worried while we were children, while crossing the road? I don't remember. I don't remember looking left and right and whatsoever because I was holding on to my mother's hand or my father's hand. I wasn't really concerned about traffic. I used to cross the road because my parents were holding on to me. That was their duty. Right? In a similar fashion, there was a little bit of great dependence, then automatically Krishna takes over. The more we allow Him to take over, He takes over. The more we resist and we want to be independent, the more independent we become. And it has to depend on our intelligence. So now we have a situation where you can engage in service externally. You can be a king. We took the example of a king specifically to say that there's nothing more profound than being a politician or a king in terms of power. Right? You're constantly being reminded of your body. You're constantly being reminded of your position on this planet. But yet, even though you are being reminded of your position on this planet and your body, if you can constantly meditate and act upon the consciousness of being Krishna's servant, that is exemplary. That is the nature of the Rajarishi. So what does this tell us? It tells us that it's possible. After all, we are not kings or queens. We lead very mediocre lives. No one is constantly harassing us saying you are great. We think we are great. In the king's case, he's constantly being told he is great. People are bowing down, people are paying obeisances, so on and so forth. People come and tell him that, they worship him as God. Right? He is a representative of God. We don't have any of those problems. We lead, fortunately, very ordinary lives. Right? It is very wonderful. So why should we even have a challenge in focusing on the eternal identity of being Krishna's servants? We should have no challenge whatsoever. Right? Sure. Sure. Now let's take a look at it in different ways. So Suhas Prabhu's question is that if someone who is transcendently situated decides not to perform his prescribed duties, right, and focuses on his internal identity of being Krishna's servant and continues that service alone, who would take care of his responsibilities? Number one, let's understand the situation. Someone who is transcendently situated, right? Being transcendently situated essentially means that they are not influenced by matter. For such a person, it really doesn't matter if they are in Grahasthashram or they are sannyas. It doesn't matter. They are transcendently situated. Ashrama is just a vehicle. Being married, being single, being a renunciate, these are vehicles. If you're transcendently situated, it doesn't bother you in which vehicle you're going to your destination. So that's the first point. Now, a person who is transcendently situated is not influenced by matter. What does that mean? He or she does not give up duties because it's inconvenient on the material plane. That's the second point. What does it mean? It means that I do not renounce due to passion. Passion means that you renounce because you're attached to the body. It's inconvenient to the body. I renounce. Right? We used to give this example of someone who feels that they need a lot of baggage while traveling on train. I've given this example several times. There are some people who feel they need to carry a lot of baggage when they go from Delhi to Bombay in train. Right? Is that an overnight journey? It is. So they feel that even if it's an overnight journey, I need a pillowcase, I need this, I need that, I need prasad, I need to carry a lot of things. Only then will I be comfortable making this journey in the night to the morning. But once he gets into the train, he starts thinking that there's way too much baggage. I don't have room to keep my feet. I don't have this. I don't have that. He starts complaining. Right. That's due to an inconvenience to the body. So similarly, people enter into the Grahastha-ashrama. They get married, and then marriage becomes inconvenient because there are responsibilities associated with marriage. One has to work, one has to make a living, one has to take care of things. Automatically, there's a lot of pressure. So one feels, now, how wonderful is this opportunity if I were to give up this ashrama because it's inconvenient, I'm having to do all of this, why not just go sit under a tree and chant Hare Krishna? That's not transcendental action. That is based on bodily inconvenience. I'm taking a decision because it's a problem for me. Right? This is not transcendently situated. A transcendently situated action would be that I am not inconvenienced by the body, but then spiritually it would benefit a lot more people if I were to take this action. So that was the decision of Sri Lord Chaitanya. That was the decision of many of our acharyas who were in Grahastha Ashrama, who took up sannyas, because by taking up sannyas, the vehicle of sannyas allows them to travel, allows them to do their job more effectively. Okay? So now the considerations that we have for making a choice in terms of either performing prescribed duties or not performing prescribed duties is not based on convenience. It is based on purely, we do it, we tolerate the circumstances because this is the vehicle we have chosen. However, the choice of a vehicle is made based on what is most convenient for us to be able to serve the Lord better. Like in the case of my spiritual master, he mentioned this very clearly. He was a very simple personality, not that he was wanting to take sannyas and all that. His point was that he would have happily married and had a couple of children, except that in 1978 he felt that he would be able to serve Srila Prabhupada much better if he took sannyas. Very simple consideration. Consideration was, if I took sannyas, then I would be able to serve better than if I were to find a spouse and get married and so on and so forth. So now a consideration is that based on duty of what is going to suit some Krishna, I would take the decision of a vehicle. So to answer your question again, the last part of your question is, will Krishna take care of those who transcendently situated personalities in their responsibilities? The answer is absolutely. You can recognize this in the Srimad Bhagavatam in Ambarish Maharaj's case. Ambarish Maharaj was a Bhava Bhakta. He was transcendently situated. He was experiencing the mellows of loving devotional service, and he used to spend many hours, countless hours, engaging in pure devotional service, directly worshipping the deity in very auspicious places as a king. So it is written in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra was constantly above the kingdom of Ambarish Maharaj, protecting the kingdom from any kind of evil, so that he could comfortably engage in pure devotional service. So now you have a situation of a king who is being given protection by the Lord so that he could perform pure devotional service. His other duties are being taken care of so wonderfully. So it's being provided for, undoubtedly. It is never a struggle. It's never a struggle. Resources are never a struggle for one who knows the purpose of using them. It's never a struggle. If he knows that he is not the proprietor, everything belongs to Krishna, and if he is able to use it diligently, resources are never a struggle. Right. So that's not an issue at all. What's your question? Both you and your husband are asking questions, so you have to choose. Okay. Good. Yes, Mataji. No, please, one of you. Thank you. Okay, now. So how will we know that we are surrendering? Is that your question? Okay. Now let's take that question in a different way. I just want to make a little statement on your questions too, your comments. A devotee should never ever act thinking that Krishna will take care of things. Okay? There's a correction here. We do things as if they are dependent on us. We do things as if they are dependent on us. We use our intelligence. We do things as if they are dependent on us, but we leave the results to Krishna. That's how we act. We never ever sit back and say, Krishna, you do everything. I will sit back. You provide for me. That's not the way we operate. We do whatever it takes. Krishna has provided intelligence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've gone through some kind of training. You do whatever you need to do. However, understand very well that the results do not belong to us. Any manifestation of the result is Krishna's desire. Okay? That's called humility. We accept Krishna's desire, right? And we act upon it as well. That is one point. I'll just complete my statement. Okay? Second, how do we know we are surrendering? Okay? Surrendering would allow you to experience mercy. And what is the definition of mercy? What is mercy? Exactly. We would be able to chant better. We would be able to read better. We would be able to live the Shastra, not just speak the Shastra or read the Shastra. We would be able to associate more. We would be able to serve better. We ask for mercy. More and more mercy manifests itself in these forms. So the more and more we surrender, we would be able to perceive an abundance of opportunity in these areas. In other words, mercy means going closer to our eternal identity of being Krishna's servant. So we will have more and more opportunities. Greater level of surrender, greater would be the perception of mercy, greater would be our action upon our opportunities for service. That's how we would be able to recognize that surrender is happening. More and more surrender. More and more surrender. Intensity in material life increases. We come across very intense situations which really put us on the spotlight, where the intensity of circumstances are such that we have never tackled these kind of circumstances in our life before. These could be complications due to health, could be complications due to economic circumstances, could be complications due to relationships, could be any kind of complications. When these manifest themselves to such an extent that we cannot be handling them, we become overwhelmed. In those circumstances, we surrender. We say, Krishna, kindly guide me, allow me to be able to serve you better, because these circumstances seem to be quite overwhelming. I do not know what decisions to take. I surrender onto your lotus feet. The more we surrender under those circumstances, the more we experience Krishna. And the experience of Krishna comes forth in the form of association from devotees, our ability to absorb and act upon Shastra, our ability to be able to chant the holy names nicely, and our ability to serve. So it's a cycle. Good. Maybe you didn't have any questions. You surrender. It doesn't mean that you stop looking for a job. It doesn't mean that you stop acting. It doesn't mean that you do nothing. Okay? You do whatever you need to do, however, understanding that the circumstances are controlled by the Lord, and whatever you're supposed to get is exactly what you need for you to be a better servant. So, if getting a job a month after you lose your job is exactly what you need, so be it. If not getting a job 6 months after you lose your job, even though you're trying hard, it essentially means that this is exactly what you need for you to be a better servant. The circumstances of life have to be accepted with gratitude, because they are being arranged for very lovingly by the Lord. The circumstances of life essentially are our own karmic reactions. We deserve worse. However, we're getting away with far less. When we accept our karmic circumstances and challenges as gifts from Krishna, they become gifts from Krishna. That is the propensity, that's the beauty of devotional service. You can bring about anything, you involve Krishna, it becomes transformed into a spiritual experience. And by experiencing Krishna under those circumstances, we increase our faith, which allows us to read, which allows us to chant, which allows us to associate more, which allows us to serve better. So this is a wonderful cycle. Krishna consciousness is a beautiful proposition. It allows us to take advantage of good and bad times. Materialists suffer. If they get into bad circumstances, materialists suffer. Devotees do not suffer even though they are in pain, because they take advantage of the circumstances by becoming grateful, and they develop realizations, and they make advancement on the spiritual plane. So it's a great advantage. Attached to the result in what way? I'm not clear about your question. I'm sorry. Mhm. Well, if we sincerely consider devotional service as being the central part of our lives, understanding that everything else that we do is meant to support devotional service, when that understanding is deep enough and we start taking decisions, saying, how can I increase my ability to perform devotional service? And based upon my interest in increasing the ability to perform devotional service, I want to take a decision on my job, for instance. Just an example. I want to take a career decision. However, my interest is in performing devotional service. So, in such circumstances, you really have to examine the decision again by keeping the ability of receiving mercy central. If I were to take a decision of, let us say, relocating from here to another city for taking up a job, which apparently pays me a little more, it's a promotion whatsoever, then one has to evaluate such circumstances by looking at it and saying that if I were to relocate, will I be able to serve better? Will I be able to associate better? Will I be able to chant better given that the job could be many, many more hours than I'm actually doing now? Will I be able to read better? So when we take a decision, the quality decision that we take has to be dependent on the quality of devotional service that we can offer. If we take a decision based on whatever else is the criterion, then that becomes a problem. So making money is important, but money cannot be in the center. It cannot be a deity. Right? It's very important. Making money is important because you have chosen a family life, which means making money is important. It is required. Right? It is required. Right? Oh, that is that is not attachment. Is that what your question was? That is not attachment. Oh, that was very simple. Okay, that's fine. But you made me speak a little more. Yeah. Okay, let's make it very clear. Krishna did not ask you to get married. I didn't put you on the spot, Ajay Govind Prabhu. I'm not trying to cause problems here. Okay, but let me just answer that question a little more carefully. I was just trying to say this is karma yoga. Choosing a certain ashram of getting married, having children is our choice, right? But once we have chosen that, ensuring that everything in that ashram gets taken care of wonderfully so that it supports our devotional service, it becomes very important. Now, when you ask me as to what is devotional service, right? You're putting him in the spot. What is devotional service? Should I serve my husband? Should I make, his lunchbox in the morning? Or should I be making daily garlands? Which is more important? What is more important to you? Well, the question is, I can ask Ajay Prabhu. Ajay Prabhu decides tomorrow that he will quit his job and he will chant 24/7. Okay? Which would you prefer? Okay. So the point which I'm trying to make here is, let's be very practical. We are not Paramahamsas, right? So very practically, we have chosen a certain ashram. We are married. We have children. We have a husband to take care of. The husband has a wife and child to take care of. We have to be able to strike the right balance. We have to strike the right balance in such a way, because this is also preaching. This movement needs this kind of preaching too. This is also preaching. Preaching means That not just preaching through the Bhagavad Gita, it's preaching through the action. This movement needs preaching that one can take on a job, be successful in their job, and yet be able to execute the occupation of a wife, husband, a father, mother. These are priorities as well. This movement needs that kind of preaching as well. Okay? We need to be able to set an example, otherwise people would say that Bhakti Yoga, the followers of Srila Prabhupada, are not very careful about their responsibilities and duties, which is exactly what this verse is all about. If I were to exemplify myself at work by being sincere, by being able to do what I need to do, that is preaching. Because if I were to exemplify myself, then there is a certain philosophy behind such action. People will inquire. They would want to know, what is the nature of your success? What do you do? What is it which allows you to perform the way you are doing? What is the secret? Because this world is all about one person wanting to excel over the other. They would want to know. That gives us an opportunity to share that we lead a certain kind of life, which is our priority. We spend a tremendous amount of time in the morning focusing on our internal identity of being a servant of the Lord. Being a servant of the Lord produces a certain level of integrity. There is no duplicity. We don't cheat. These are wonderful qualities of an employee. Right? So we have a certain duty to perform far beyond the 2 hours of chanting or the Bhakta Vriksha or the temple. We have a duty to perform that we lead exemplary lives beyond these walls. And those lives attract the attention of people because they are exemplary. So in that sense, getting everything together and taking care of home is as important as taking care of the, doing direct deity worship. We'll have to ensure that. Until time comes when we can avoid eating, we can avoid drinking and so on, when we are not bothered by the circumstances of life. So there is a practical consideration. We want to take care of things so that they don't become a problem. That's very important in life. You take care of the body so that the body doesn't become a problem. It is not that we are focused on the body, but I need exercise for the body to function normally. So you take care of the body so that the body doesn't become a problem. Similarly, you take care of your profession, you take care of your house so that it doesn't become a problem, where you start putting more attention to it just because it's become a problem. So that's the principle we would want to operate on. So we always want to understand that wonderfully we ensure that these are the circumstances that I am in. Even if I chose it or Krishna has put me in these circumstances, either way you could take it. These circumstances are the circumstances I am in. It's a practical consideration. What do? I ensure that I can focus on whatever needs to be done at home so that I can then focus on devotional service wonderfully. Right? Because otherwise you start putting out fires constantly. Professional fires, relationship fires, all fires. So what's the point? Transcending is good, but we should avoid putting ourselves in circumstances where you have to constantly transcend. That's not fun. Okay? Sure. Yes. That is what I answered just now, saying that you have to strike a balance. You take care of things so that they don't become problematic. Right? You exercise not to build your body. You exercise so that your body remains fit. Right? So that's the focus. So we are not so concerned about looking very good. We are more concerned about being healthy so that we could serve more. Because our concern is about service. Our concern is about being a better servant at all times. Why would I hamper that if I could help it? It's absurd. Krishna has given me intelligence. Krishna is telling me, do this, do that. Why wouldn't I do that? Because, for example, Srila Prabhupada, for example, if we realize that the body is unhealthy, it's absurd not to take steps to mitigate such health problems. Where we start acting, thinking, oh, Krishna will take care. Krishna has given you intelligence. Krishna has already provided intelligence. He has made arrangements. You've gone to a doctor. The doctor is advising you that you need to avoid 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to exercise. You need to do this. What's wrong in just doing that? We shouldn't be complicating more than it needs to be. It's very simple. It's actually quite simple. You don't want to complicate Krishna consciousness. You just take care of things which you have to take care of because it's a practical, pragmatic consideration. There is the practical side to it. Take care of it. Prabhupada used to say, if you see it's raining, take an umbrella. You don't have to go and consult Krishna. Maybe Krishna will protect me. Maybe when I walk, there will be no rains. Maybe, but why do you want to put Krishna in that spot? You don't want to do that. You want to take care of it. I'll give you an example. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and this is no comparison with us. He used to chant and constantly meditate on the holy names in Vrindavan. And Vrindavan in summer. Sitting next to Govardhan. Govardhan is a mountain. And you sit next to Govardhan, you're chanting the holy names. The mountain in summer is going to radiate heat. He used to constantly sit and chant the Mahamantra. And while he used to chant the Mahamantra, the sun used to be blistering hot in summer. That one day, as he was sitting and chanting the holy names, and he was meditating on the mantra, Sanatan Goswami was passing by, and he saw Raghunath Das Goswami under a tree, right? And Srimati Radharani was holding her pallu over his head, protecting him from the sun while he chanted. And she was profusely sweating. She was profusely sweating in the sense that she was in distress. Sanatan Goswami could see from his sight that Srimati Radharani herself was offering this protection. Later on, after some time, there was one more incident where he used to sit near a pond and chant. And he used to be completely unmindful of who is around and what is happening because he used to become so absorbed in the holy names. And then the tiger was coming to drink water. And Sanatan Goswami then saw Krishna ready to kill that tiger if it were to harm Raghunath Das Goswami while he was sitting down and chanting. So Sanatan Goswami, who was the guru of everyone, he called Raghunath Das Goswami and he begged him. He said, please, let's have these villagers build a kutir for you. Please be in the kutir because you are extracting service from the divine couple. We are supposed to be serving them. They are not supposed to be serving us. You are extracting service because Radharani was there protecting you from sunlight. Krishna is there trying to protect you from wild animals. This is constantly happening. Let us build a kutir for you so that you will be comfortable. So now in these circumstances we understand that we do not want Krishna to be serving us. We are to be serving him. So we don't want a situation where we start thinking that surrender means inaction. That's not true. Surrender means full action, but complete dependence on Krishna for results. I will act as if it depends on me, but when the results come, I would accept them as Krishna's mercy. I would not debate on what kind of results should come due to my surrender, due to my actions. So did Krishna advise Arjun to put down his bow and arrows? He advised him to fight. Krishna advised him to fight. Fight. Do not worry about anything. Perform your duties. Leave the results to me. So in every circumstance, Krishna wanted him to fight and act upon his instructions. So inaction is not advised in Krishna consciousness. We act, we take care of things to the fullest capability that we have. However, we are careful, understanding that the results that are going to come forth belong to Krishna. Krishna, he controls the results. We accept the circumstances as his gifts and we move on. That's the wonderful, that if we observe that, then our decision making will be aligned with our internal identity. See, the soul has no other source of happiness other than wanting to connect to Krishna. No other source of happiness. When we take into consideration the aspirations of the soul, then our decision making cannot be wrong, because we are going very deep into our existence and we are taking a decision based on those aspirations. When we take decisions based on bodily inconvenience or convenience, we would be totally wrong. So let's just quickly read these verses, the translation. Estva atmaratireva syad atmatriptascha manavaha atmani eva santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. Naiva tasya kritenartho na kritaneha kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschid artha vyapashreyah. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. So a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties. He has no purpose to fulfill. Someone who is not self-realized has the purpose to fulfill, because the fulfilling of prescribed duties allows them to get gradually purified and move forward in their evolution. For a self-realized man, he has achieved the goal that has been enunciated in the Vedas. He has achieved the samam bonam. He has reached Krishna. So for him, there is no duty to perform, and yet by performing duties, he is not affected, because he is transcendently situated. Either way, it doesn't matter, right? Sometimes, not always. Is that a question or a confession? Right? Question. Okay. So your question is, what is your question? Yes, that is, again, as I explained to you, our judgment of duty in conditioned life is based on what is convenient and what is not convenient. Oh, something is convenient to my body, I will take it up. Something is not convenient to my body, I will reject it. So all our acceptance and rejection is based on what is convenient, what is not convenient. This is the mode of passion. Right? I don't want to study, a child says, because I would rather do kirtan. Now, is he saying that because he's motivated by kirtan, or is he saying that because he doesn't want to study because it's painful? In most cases, no, it's a fact. In, for example, children, right? You can see that. In our own society, in the younger days, there used to be a lot of preaching in the early days of the movement that The material world is Maya. Material world is Maya. Material world is Maya. So many children who grew up in that circumstances got up and said, I don't want a job because a job is Maya. It's in the material world. I don't want to study because the material world is a Maya. I don't want to do this. It's Maya. Okay? Now, that is not transcendental. It is just passion. I'm convenienced, I do something. I'm inconvenienced, I will not do it. It's based on the body. It has nothing to do with Krishna. So we shouldn't confuse ourselves. Nor does he have any reason not to perform such work. When they're referring to reason, they're talking about mundane reasons. Someone who is transcendently situated is not obligated. He doesn't even have to consider many aspects of what normally people would have to consider. So that's what it means here. It talks about mundane reasoning, not to perform any work. There's no mundane reason. Mundane reasons would be that if you do not perform your duty, then you would have impious reactions. No consideration of impious reactions. Okay, let's go on with just a couple of more verses. We just want to read it. We've already explained it. Tasmad ashaktah satatam karyam karma samachara ashakto hi acharan karma param apnoti purushah. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For, by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Right. So we explained this as well, that you perform as a matter of duty without attachment to the fruits of your actions. You do whatever you need to do in an exemplary manner, leaving the results to Krishna. Gain, fine. Pain, fine. If there's going to be name, fame, fine. Infamy, fine. These are fruits. But we perform our duty under all circumstances. Let's see, one more verse please. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadayah lokasangrahamevapi sampasyan kartumarhasi. Kings such as Janaka attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tat tat evataro janahan sayat pramanam kurute lokastat anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world follows. So we understand very clearly that even after achieving perfection, continue to perform your duties, because there will be others who are completely dependent on their following their duties to be able to move forward. Right? So one who is performing devotional service, he is not obligated to perform his prescribed duties, because devotional service, by performing devotional service wonderfully, he attains the fruits of whatever is prescribed in the Vedas, which is the lotus feet of Krishna. However, even though one has attained the lotus feet of Krishna, he still performs his duties wonderfully because he becomes exemplary. There are countless souls in the world who will not take up Krishna consciousness, but will have to be situated in Varnashrama. They will have to follow their duties, and they will have to go and make progress on a step-by-step evolutionary manner. So for them, those who are devoted and those who are in a position of transcendence, they would still continue to follow their duties to set examples. We'll stop right here. Yeah. Well, they live the Shastra fully. They live the Shastra. See, verse 15:15 of the Bhagavad Gita is the Paribhasha Sutra of the Bhagavad Gita, which means that one verse explains the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita in full. This is the conclusion of the Shastras. 15:15. Now in 15:15, Krishna says very clearly, I am to be known by the Vedas. I am the knower of the Vedanta. Right? He says that. So the entire purpose of following the rules and regulations of the Vedas ultimately is to know Krishna. In other words, to attain Sambandha Gyan, to know who we are, to know who is Krishna, to understand the relationship between us and Krishna, to engage in activity based on such relationship. Right? That is the sum and purpose of all Vedas, or any religion for that matter. Any religion has to eventually bring a soul to a position where he can ask these questions and attain a knowledge of who he is, who is Krishna, what is the relationship. This is the purpose of any bona fide religion. If that is not happening, one will have to question themselves. Are they progressing slowly and coming to a point of being able to love God? That is the purpose of religion, fundamentally. Now, the question is, since the Vedas themselves, sum total of following the Vedas is to attain the lotus feet of the Lord, right? If your question is, does a transcendently situated personality, do they have to follow the fruitive actions and so on and so forth, recommendations of the Vedas? Is that your question? Oh, well, so in other words, you're saying, are the rules of the Shastra applicable to someone who is transcendently situated? Well, the answer is no. In certain ways, no. The rules are not applicable in the sense that they are transcendently situated. You will find many circumstances where they would use the commonplace rules of the Vedas to be able to offer whatever have to be offered. I'll give you several examples. If the purpose is for us to be able to please Krishna and to further the movement of Lord Chaitanya, then the rules of the Vedas are being mended. For example, in our own movement, right? Srila Prabhupada offered Gayatri and Brahmanical initiation to women. Because these days, Vedic injunction is there is no injunction such as that, where you have to be able to Brahmanically initiate, women and to be able to give them the Gayatri and so on. But Srila Prabhupada instituted that because in these days, there's a lot of participation by women in activities which men perform as well. So there is a sense of equality. There's a sense of, there's no difference. Right? Now, a Vedic rule has been subverted by an authority purely to further the mission of Lord Chaitanya favorably. So, to answer your question, yes, it is not applicable when the purpose is to transcend, because that's the purpose of the Vedas. However, in most cases, we have to follow. They would follow. They would follow to the closest level. So, because otherwise, what will happen is that people, for example, I'll give you one more example too from the Srimad Bhagavatam. You can read about Jadabharata. King Jadabharata, he used to walk around without any clothes. He never used to have his bath for many, many days. He used to, literally be in the material mundane concept, he used to be filthy. Right. Now, in such circumstances, one is not supposed to be this way, one is not supposed to be that way. You can produce so many rules that you have to have a bath 3 times and this, so on and so forth. But he was a transcendental personality. He was a completely transcendental personality for whom such rules and regulations did not matter. So when the relationship with Krishna also thickens in such a way, all barriers are broken. So devotees who are very advanced, and this is very careful, do not ever think that we are advanced. Devotees who are very advanced, they have a personal relationship with Krishna. I have seen in some circumstances where, for example, now Mataji came and then she has left Bhoga for the Lord. Right? Now she left Bhoga, she rang a bell, she made the offering, she then went away. Right? After saying the mantras. But then I have seen devotees who have a very personal relationship with the Lord come forward. I have seen worshippers of Giriraj who are very advanced. They'll come with Rasgulla and they would call the name of the deity. Are you hungry? Eat. They would leave it in front of him, they would offer him. Now, in such circumstances, there are no rules, regulations, no mantras being chanted, but the personality has evolved to such an extent, and his relationship with the Lord is so intense that he is basically acting with him. Now, take the example of the residents of Braja. Imagine Mother Yashoda recognizing that Krishna is supreme and start following the rules and regulations. Will she be able to experience the loving relationship between a mother and son? The answer is no. Will Krishna's friends, following the rules and regulations of the Vedas, start being able to accept him as a supreme Lord and act with him in one, in the same level which is required for him to experience the love of friendship? The answer is no. So if you notice that there are levels and there are certain areas where, in terms of them being able to reach that particular position, such rules and regulations, vidhi, get set away. Vedas are for vidhi, and it is for situations where they perform Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi Bhakti means acting according to rules and regulations. Extremely important. Should not be minimized. Should not be minimized. Very important. Prabhupada instituted so many rules and regulations for worshipping the deities and so on and so forth. So many wonderful rules and regulations, Pancharatra. All of this is very important. But then, a time comes when the devotee crosses all of this and starts developing attachment to the deity, where these rules, regulations and everything become an obstacle in being able to express love between himself and the devotee. Madhavendra Puri, the spiritual master of Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he explains that. He says, what use is the performance of Gayatri 3 times a day for me? What use is the performance of oblations to the forefathers? What use is all of this? Because Mukunda, Krishna, has already come into my life so fully. I have no use for any of these rules and regulations. Right? So he has reached a point where his transcendental relationship has fully awakened. For such a personality, there are no rules and regulations, because that will start interfering with the relationship. Right? Now there's a mother and son. Imagine, even though the son might be the president of a country, there's still a mother and son, and there cannot be protocol, there cannot be rules and regulations, because it will interfere with that relationship. And the ultimate objective of religion is to attain proximity and close relationship with the Lord. However, the caveat is that we have to be very careful in the early stages, because we are in sadhana bhakti. And when we are in sadhana bhakti, vidhi is very important. Rules and regulations are very important. Wake up at 4 a.m. Go to bed at a certain time. Eat, at a certain time. Eat only this kind of food. Fast on Ekadasis fully. Extremely important for different rules and regulations, and we perform this. I'll give you one more example, since you're asking me this. One day, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur walked into his mutt, and he found 2 brahmacharis lying down, taking rest during the day. And it was Nirjala Ekadasi. So he asked them, why are you here? You're supposed to be out there preaching. They said, Guru Maharaj, we are very tired because we are not eating, we are fasting. He called the cook and he told him, make khichdi, which is non-ekadasi. Make khichdi. And he told both his disciples, eat this khichdi, go out and preach. That is more important than lying down here fasting. Now, a rule and regulation of the Veda, rule and regulation which has to be performed for a certain tithi, which is Ekadasi, has been flaunted because the Acharya is saying transcendental service is more important than following the rules and regulations. Do not hide behind the rules and regulations and not perform service which you are supposed to perform. Right. So what did the Brahmanas of Vrindavan do? The Brahmanas of Vrindavan were so caught up in performing rules and regulations and the Vedas, they could not even recognize Krishna Balaram and their friends. The purpose of following the rules and regulations. They said, we cannot feed you. The wives of the Brahmanas who are not Pandits, they had love in their heart. They could see that this is Madhava, this is Balaram. My duty is to take care of their needs first. So they fed them. Okay. So now one has to realize that bending rules is fine, but purely for the interest of Krishna. And we don't have the capacity to take such decisions. So we have to be very careful. Such decisions can be taken by people who have the authority to do so. They can take a decision to bend any rule because they have the absolute authority to do so. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Prabhupada, they can do anything they want because they are transcendently situated. Yes, you can say that. You can say that. But then you got to also realize, maybe I just want to add a little more color. We should not mix Shastra, Vedas, also is a Srimad Bhagavatam, is a Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Now, Chaitanya Chaitamrita is Shastra. Those who are transcendently situated also relish Srimad Bhagavatam fully. Right? It is Shastra. So we should not get mixed up. You should say very clearly the Karmakanda section of the Vedas, the Jnanakanda section of the Vedas, fruitive activity. That is for those who are conditioned. Yes. But not a broad statement that all Shastras are for those who are conditioned. No, that will not be the statement I would take. Right? I just want to make sure that I clarify. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki